I want to welcome you to the Meacham interviews, and today we have Bill Rasmovicz from Brooklyn, New York. Hello, Bill.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Our usual procedure is to start by having you read a poem.
All right. I'll read something from my second book here, Gross Ardor. You can almost see the ocean from here. To differentiate between fire and flame, one must offer the self. Sebastian, he let the arrows pierce him into ecstasy. At least that's what Gozzoli revealed, that permagrin, that attitude exuded in the astute pitch of his hip. Despite our capacity to outshine the Godhead himself, the body is to be spent. Any imaginable Shangri-La, then, is just an incarnation of someone else's gulag. So it is that the ethics of desire need not apply for chemical warfare. That, leg gashed, the man perennially seeking change outside the drugstore smiles wider than you. What are any of us a bad dream couldn't set straight? A day in the mines. From the moment of our outset, it was known. Doubt is a stone you swallow. Rain, a multiplication by many zeros. And the hip or the spine is always the first to go. And all you're inspired to do is catch up with your couch and drown in a video of the ocean on your ocean-sized television. Keep believing you are elsewhere. Keep forgetting air has weight. An empire will pull itself into existence by the straps of its own two boots. The beard can grow so thick you can no longer force sustenance through it.
Oh, thank you. That really radiates out pretty fast.
Yeah.
From St. Sebastian to chemical warfare and all kinds of stuff. So, take us through the process, how that evolved.
Well, most of my poems, I really don't have a process. I take a lot of notes and they sort of grow biotically, I guess, out of themselves. They pull themselves into existence by the straps of their own two boots, more or less. This poem did have a particular starting point that I can remember, and it was in Italy, seeing a mural of St. Sebastian, and that was the first note I remember taking for this piece. I didn't know it would become this poem, but I know where it started from.
Yeah, I think in one of Bill Matthews' poems, he calls him the original pincushion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, this actually, I mean, your poems talk about all these concrete things, and they move around really fast from one thing to another. And we actually looked at a couple in my freshman class the other day. It's interesting that the students went first towards the philosophy behind the poems. And what role does the big ideas philosophy play in your poems?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I'm concerned about the bigger things. That seems to be what I write about. I can't control it. It comes out. But I don't know. I don't consciously try to make my poems philosophical at all. But that's just the way they, I guess those are my natural issues. So I guess that's what.
Have you read a lot of philosophy?
Not a ton, actually. No, not a ton. A lot of more science-y type stuff. I mean, some fiction and poetry, of course, but, my background is primarily science-based. Yeah. So.
Well, you're a pharmacist.
Right.
In Manhattan, actually.
Yes,
but,
yes.
How does that, most of the writers today, in America at least, as opposed to Europe, teach in university or somehow engaged in like a library or book publishing or something like that. And I think you're unique in that way, or somebody like Phil Levine who started off in factories, basically. Mm-hmm. How does that interact with your own poems, would you say?
Well, it's hard to gauge, but I think it works pretty well. I like it. I like, not necessarily the job of being a pharmacist, but how pharmacy feeds the poetry. I like having the science-based background and the jargon and the scientific mind, and I can kind of recontextualize that and make that work in poems. It's I don't know. It's almost a metaphorical approach to writing for me. It feeds it for sure.
Yeah, I
You know,
think
it's not necessarily the writing that feeds my writing and the reading that feeds my writing. It's definitely both, you know, the reading and writing and the science realm that feeds it.
Yeah, I was talking to Bruce Bond, and we're talking about how when I read philosophy, I'm reading it for the metaphors, and I read a lot of science too. I have a scientific background, but for me, it's the metaphors that are so interesting. And
Yeah, well, it definitely gives you a handle of a different capacity to understand things that, you know, maybe the literary realm would not.
yeah,
They're a different language with which to, you know, to use.
yeah. Well, you've also traveled a lot too.
Yeah, that helps for sure. I mean, that broadens your perspective, you know.
Yeah, are there any particular new discoveries that you made when you were traveling? Writers, ideas?
None that I can specifically account for right now, but I mean, the whole process of traveling is full of that. I mean, it's just new stimulation all the time. And, you know, I don't write a lot when I travel. I just travel, and then I kind of reprocess it later. And I might take some notes here and there, but I think later on the traveling comes out in my writing.
Yeah, I think that's true with most writers, is that you don't write about what's there in front of you.
Right, it's
but
hard to
later on.
understand at that particular moment. You need a little time to digest, you know, the situation and time spent in a place.
Yeah. What advice would you have for younger writers?
I would say see as much of the world as possible. I think that helps a great deal, and to do different things, to, you know, not just be concerned with reading and writing. Do some other things, you know, and allow that to feed your writing. I think it's important.
You still
It
read a
gives you
lot
a
of
much broader
science.
context, you know, with which to write in.
You still read a lot of science, and
Right, right. I do read a lot of science, but I read, you know, a fair bit of, obviously, poetry and literature as well.
And how about what is the literary scene like in Brooklyn, the art scene? Does that affect you at all? I know New York is one of the places people go and they say, oh, if you're a writer, you've got to go to New York or San Francisco.
It's overwhelming. It's good. It's great. There's a reading you can go to every single day if you wanted to, or a performance of, you know, some capacity for sure. But it's almost too much at a certain point. You know, you go to a lot of things, and eventually you kind of have to get back to yourself and, you know, do what you need to do. But it's easy to be inspired, of course, but
Yeah.
especially as a traveler. When you live there for a certain number of years, I think it starts to fade, and maybe you take it for granted and get too used to it. But I'm in a comfortable place now where I know what I need to do, I think.
It takes a while to get to that place.
It does.
How did you?
Too long.
How would you say you developed as a writer? Was it a
Completely
direct-
haphazardly.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no controlling that whatsoever. It happens. I think it's a function of the amount of work you put into it.
Yeah.
Whether it's reading and writing and traveling and just being engaged in your life wholesale.
Yeah. What was your? You went to Vermont College for your graduate program. How did that? Because you meet a whole bunch of writers there. And
That's great. That was a super formative experience for me. That was the college experience I never had. Pharmacy school was very scheduled and kind of rote. But I got to meet a lot of fantastic people, super smart people. Yeah, that changed everything. That changed my life, at least in terms of my writing, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That was great.
Well, I want to thank you for being here today. That was terrific, and have
Thank
fun
you
in your
for having
workshop
me.
tomorrow. Okay.
Thanks.